Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back from the glorious lunch that we all had, I hope. This is probably the biggest audience I've ever spoken to, as compared to 10 people in my company. How is it going so far? Did you learn things? Yeah, gonna do the change incrementally, yeah? As you said, my name is Karolis. I work as a product manager at a company called Just Eat. Anyone heard of Just Eat before? 1, 2, 3. Ooh, all right. Dominating the market. So I'll tell a bit more in the next slides. Who here is a developer? Dominating. Who is a product project manager, BA? All right. Roughly the same. Cool. So I'm a product manager, not very technical. So things you'll hear today are not technical, but they are about how to avoid the biggest mistakes in your life, if you will. So on today's menu, and I warn you, there are food puns everywhere, and pictures from our ads, and so on. So it should be entertaining, hopefully. So I'm going to talk about dual track development, and honestly, just one slide about it. Anyone heard of dual track development before? No? All right. So the buzzword of today for you to take home, to take away. I'm going to have 2 slides about product delivery, and mostly going to focus about product discovery, what it is, how we do it at Just Eat, and why you should do it as well. So about Just Eat. We are a world leader in online takeaway ordering. And by saying world leader, I mean we make more money than any other competitor nearby. We work in 13 countries. We're leaders in those countries. We sold a few recently where we were not. Last year, we made £250 million in revenue. That came from 96 million orders. And I must warn you, we are growing 50% year on year, while being publicly listed. So it's a massive company, massive risk, and we have more to lose than competitors have to gain. So I have lots of responsibility on my shoulder to make sure that my product works well. And just to give you a perspective, during peak time, which is Friday, 7 p.m., also if it's raining, also if you just got your salary, we make around 50 orders per second, so it's 3,000 per minute. I'm not going to continue because the numbers keep growing, but it's massive numbers, and the company is of a very big scale. So if you're a startup, you can break things and move fast. As a publicly listed company, you have to move fast, but make sure you don't break too many things. And if you do, make sure only like 1% of your users see that experience while you're experimenting. So that's what I'm going to talk about, how to break things silently, if you will. I'm just going to skip the video, it's all right. So dual track development, this is probably the best representation of it. So anyone who's a product manager, you know you have to manage your delivery. There is the ceremonies in place, which were discussed today. But as a product manager, you're also responsible to figure out what you're going to build. So sometimes you're told what to build and when you have to build it, and then this is the number of developers you have, so go ahead and do it. But in our organization, we are very much encouraged to drive the product forward. So that's why our core focus is the discovery and figuring out what to build. So when we have stand-ups, we say, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm releasing, and these are the experiments that I'm running, and these are the other things that I'm researching. So it's an integral part of the work that we do. So that was the one slide I promised. Now about product delivery, and this is a real thing. We have delivery bots, experimenting with them again, and not again, already, in Greenwich area. And soon they will be delivering food to your door if you live in London. Delivery is all about shipping features, right? And I'm just going to talk about things while you look at this GIF because it's so mesmerizing. So everyone in this room probably shipped a feature, and you popped a bottle of champagne. You were very happy with it. I'm just going to stop there. You were very happy with the fact that you managed to get something out the door as compared to 20 million being spent and nothing being out the door, like we heard this morning. But the reason you should do product discovery is so that the feature you've shipped doesn't end up like this. in a desert, abandoned, not being used, not being cared about. And that's probably the best scenario of a failed feature. If no one's using it, you can probably silently remove it. But what if the feature that you've shipped is deteriorating numbers? What if conversion rate's dropping? What if users are leaving? What if reviews are, instead of 5, they're only 1, and so on? Then you get even more attention for this failure. So it's going to be a very expensive lesson. If you don't get fired, probably you wouldn't. So therefore, you should listen to all these next slides, how product discovery, how one of the ways of doing product discovery. I'm not saying this is all set in stone. So a backlog, pun very much intended, you can laugh now. So for some of us, we have our backlog. It's very hard and heavy, stale. It's not very exciting. So the role of a product manager is to figure out what to do next. So instead of this heavy log, you'll have a jetpack on your back. It's applause, yay. So discovery is figuring out what to build, and the end result is a validated roadmap, right? And the word validated is essential in our company. If you're about to launch a feature, and you better have an answer that, yes, you validated this feature is going to increase conversion rate by that much. It was so successful in user testing, and we can't wait to have it. Great, you may release it. So that's the kind of roadmap you should be having. And it's a very simple process, 3 steps. One is first of all, you should understand your customer. So now, apologies to those who do B2B software. The department where I work is consumer-facing, so therefore we have customers as people. We can walk up to them in the street. We can even call them. We never do that, though. That's creepy. We can try and see what they want to have or what do they not want to have, and business very rarely dictates the features that we should be building, right? So it's not business-driven, it's consumer-driven product. Next step is we build experiments, and you're going to hear the word experiment very often. And the next step is measure results, obviously, after you run the experiment. So product discovery I just did. First step, understanding your customer, so you can easily follow the progress of my presentation right here at the bottom. First step, you need to understand what's the user pain, what's the user need, what do they want, what do they not want, and rarely someone will go out and tell you what they not want unless you put a pop-up in front of them or they see this sparkly button that says give feedback. So we have feedback forms, and having thousands and hundreds of thousands orders a day, it's very fun to open your inbox in the morning, get your coffee and read through all the swear words, really funny ones. Where people complain how food was late, how the app was a bit slower than they expected, and so on. So there's lots of feedback there. We get records of calls being sent to us if it's related to our product. We'll visit the call center and then listen in, see how people solve the problem for that specific person. They usually call the restaurant, though, and send a coupon. And the most public place to see how your product is performing is the reviews. So you basically open the App Store and see how you're doing. And I have notifications set up to see when someone is unhappy with and gives us 1 star. So these are a few of sources of information for customer pain. Next step is user testing, and this is exactly how it looks when we do it. People are smiling. So we go to coffee shops, do usability testing there. We go to malls. We have an agency that brings users to the office, and we also arrange a meeting with people and go to visit them at home. So at this moment, they get free food, obviously. So all family gathers around, children are running and screaming and beating each other. So then you understand what are users actually doing when using your product. They have to deal with their kids, they have to deal with different requests, and they have to order food at the same time because now they're hungry, right? And you haven't gone to the shop. So all of these studies help us understand what to be building. And the last thing we do is remote testing, and that's how it looks in our case. We use a company called UserZoom. We submit a link to the prototype, give a scenario, and people use the prototype and give their comments, and then we just watch the videos. So it's probably apart from going outside and catching someone in the street and asking them to use my prototype, it's probably one of the fastest ways of getting feedback. Still on understanding the customer. So now that you know what's the user's pain, is the checkout page loading for a while? Do they not like using postcode search? Maybe they would like to use address search. All of these comments and come to one place and you have a long list. Now, next step is to figure out how big is the problem. So measuring size of the problem. We use Google Analytics Premium. So we build custom segments, build funnels, and we see where is the drop-off point of users using that specific feature or that specific element of the product where you found that they have a pain. Then we try and figure out maybe there is a workaround to the problem that you have. For example, we don't allow you to check out of 2 restaurants at once. Like on Amazon, you can buy 2 products with 1 click. For us, you can only buy from 1 restaurant. So there is a way to see how many people use workarounds. If they have two purchases, one after another, within 20 minutes, that's probably they're using that workaround. And that's potentially the size of your problem. So if the problem is big enough, then we move on. And if it's not, we park it. So this process is very helpful when someone who's not related to product development from another department, for example, comes to you and asks for something to be built for them because they envision that this is going to save their life. So this is the process that we'd go for to see if actually it will, or it's only affecting 0.5% of users, which is millions, so we still should have take a look at it. So moving on to the next step is experiments. So if you're going to be taking pictures at some point, I see no one did, then you should take a picture of this slide, because the only way to test your ideas is to give customers the experience. And in my lifetime, in the startups before, I have made a mistake of not giving the experience, but I was asking questions instead. So what we do, we build a prototype and give it to users. And that's where our main focus is. We use many prototyping tools, but UX department prefers Azure, if I pronounce it correctly. So build a prototype, send it through user Zoom, go to coffee shops, get people into the office, get people to use the product. We see where they struggle. And sometimes we just inject the little button that we try to build into the user flow and see if anyone even noticed it, if anyone even cared about it. Next step, another way of giving customers the experience is to give concierge service. So I'll come up with a random example. If you were to build a delivery service, which is basically a logistics company, but not a marketplace. So you're talking about scooters and bicycles. You want to experience the life of a cyclist. So you'll accept the order, you jump on a bicycle and do it yourself. So you'll understand that it's important to know the cooking time, how much time do you have to get to the restaurant, how much time do you have to get to the customer, and how many flights of stairs are there to the customer, and how many dogs on the way. So concierge service, do it yourself, see, fake the service and see how people react to it. So once you fake it, you don't even have to build it. You understand that it's probably not useful, or it is very useful. Hard-coded features example is a landing page. Say you want to introduce a new service, you build a landing page with your value propositions, run some ads, or just show it to some clients, and then they'll give their opinion. And you can discuss your idea in depth instead of having to build it, go and sell it, and then seeing that it doesn't sell. Live data product. So for us, after prototype, live data is the next step where we hack, and I'll get to it, sorry, just not run ahead of myself. As you can see, this is going to be a very short presentation. I'm halfway there. Probably one of the most controversial ways of testing is fake door experiments. And when my dad picked me up from the airport tonight, I said I was going to talk about fake door experiments. He's like, what the fuck's that? So we're going to build a button, but it's not going to do anything. And he's like, but you're cheating, you're tricking people. And I'm like, yes, but then we save millions on the way. So we will get some people angry, and I'll show later on how we manage that. But fake door is something that we do, fake door experiment. So step 1 in prototyping, build responsive prototypes. So as you can see, I skipped the steps of hand-drawn mockups, balsamic mockups, and I've gone straight to the sort of higher fidelity prototypes. I assume you've gone through those bits. Once you have your prototype, you go out and do user testing. And if someone stumbles on the path and they can't finish the scenario that you prepared for the user, then you have a problem, and you have your UX designer next to you or yourself, and you fix the prototype right away. You give it to the next user and the next one. This way you have feedback loops of 30 minutes, and it's intentionally loops here. Just to jump in front of all the questions that you're having right now, what if it's just one person? It's not a real problem. Yes, you can wait for 3 people to not finish your scenario and then fix the problem, up to you. But if you notice that when you have a prototype in front of people, you're actually learning about the product you're about to build, so you're having a great learning experience so far, and around 0 development budget has been spent so far in the prototype. Right, step 2, the experiment. So this is how everyone's dinner tables look if they use Just Eat. Italian's probably one of the most popular cuisines, pizzas and so on. So this is your bell, this is your whistle, this is your fireworks, this is all the features that you want to build into your product, and the scope is that big, and your wishes are even bigger, and your deadline is Christmas. So what do you do then? Instead of building all of this, you try and be agile. Just going to use this word carefully. So agile experimentation. And you only build one dish. You only build part of one dish. Maybe you build just little meatball here. The point is that you're using your own development resources who are supposed to be working on a feature. You use those resources for 1-3 days, maybe 4, but 5 probably a bit too long. Then you need to cut it down a bit. So you're building an experiment. You're building a live data experiment. You plug into your own APIs, or if you don't have that API, then you probably have an Excel spreadsheet somewhere, hard-coded, as I was mentioning before. So you build a hack, and you launch an A/B test on your website on the traffic that you have. Now, I do have the luxury, and I so enjoy it. I have the luxury of having lots of traffic, putting up the experiment to 1%, start getting some data in a day or 2. If I put it up to 5%, I probably have significant results in a week. We use Optimizely for this. There's many other tools out there. If you Google A/B experiment, you'll find it, A/B test. So this luxury allows all the product managers to run their experiments simultaneously while sort of making sure that we don't step on each other's toes. And this way you validated your idea with user testing and the data that you looked at, and now you've launched the live experiment without actually building the features, sort of, right? And sort of is very important here. So you have the experiment live, it's running, and you can report to the board that I have the experiment running, and I will tell you in a week if we're actually going to build it. So examples, not only theory. This is an Italian website, and so in UK, everyone knows their postcode. Postcode is pretty much, you have your own personal postcode if you live in a house. If it's a block of flats, it's probably like 50 apartments on that postcode. So it's a very narrow area. You need to put in your postcode, then you get a list of restaurants that will deliver to you, and then you can order your food. Now in Italy and in Canada, postcodes are very big, 20 miles sometimes, radius. So what they do, they use address. And the address entry box they had, I did check, they had 4 fields. So they had the city, they had the street name, house number, and the apartment number. Not sure why you need that at the front, but they had it. You do need it at the front sometimes. So instead, to fix this problem, instead of building the whole address database and so on, as you can find your address, they plugged into Google Places API. So as you type, the addresses would drop down, so you can pick your address from the drop-down box. and you can proceed to the next step. So instead of 4 overwhelmingly looking boxes, you see 1, and as you type, it saves you steps on the way. And this work took 2-3 days to implement. Just plug into API, they have auto-suggest in the code already, you can just start using it. So the results were amazing. The put-through from homepage to list increased vastly, and they basically built this whole thing into the website properly, with proper tracking, proper, you name it. Like if you put only just the street name, another box opens and it asks you for a house number, because the streets may be long. So that was an example of a successful experiment that the team ran before actually building the feature. The proper building of the feature took them a couple of months. So they have validated their assumptions and proceeded. And the fig door example, so this is blurred on purpose, even though you're far away and the screen is big. We had an assumption. People don't want to have food of a specific cuisine. We had an assumption that they want to order food for a specific occasion, which is true though. They are either at home and they're lazy, or they have in-laws coming in, or they just have kids to feed, or they're celebrating. Either case, you could have moods here, or types of food you should be looking for. And so it has, I want to indulge, I'm being healthy, I'm on a diet, I can go on and on. This was a very comprehensive list of things that are not confirmed and unknown. So to build this feature, you would have had to tag your data, all the restaurants, you'd have to tag it so that the filter would work. And once you put in your postcode, you would then choose your mood and hit find takeaways, and it would take you to the list for that specific occasion. That would have been a very tedious, long piece of work. So what they've done, they only built the drop-down here on the front page, on the home page. And the results came in, and not many people engaged with it. Only 5%, I think, clicked on the drop-down. Maybe you should expand it by default. Only 5% clicked on the drop-down, and then of these choices, there was one, just show me everything. So that was the most popular choice. So that obviously indicated that people don't really understand the concept. I'm in this mood, so would you provide me the food for that mood? What will be the dish? What will I eat? So, but what we've done is when you click your mood, click find takeaways, we say, we're not quite ready for this feature. It was a fake door, so we sort of apologize. We say, you caught us off guard. However, would you think this feature would be useful from 1 to 5? And then people vote. The voting came in, and the results, voting software worked. Another pun here. So the results came in, and it was around 3. No, the people were indifferent. So obviously, this wasn't a very successful experiment. Now, it took around 3 days to build this. The pop-up boxes, we just built it for all fig door experiments in Optimizely. So it took 3 days to build this, and we avoided around a month or 2 months of work and a potential failure. So that's how fig door experiments allow you to sort of fail fast, learn quickly, and move on. So, and then the team moved on to a better feature. Right, I'm almost at the end. You're excited? So measuring the results to me is probably the most exciting bit. Once I launch the experiment, I come back home. When the evening orders start kicking in, I see traffic, I see the percentages moving. So we look at 3 things: the engagement rate with the feature, how many people clicked on it. So you see out of 100,000 visits, 5,000 engaged with it. That's probably okay, could be better. However, those who did engage, they had a higher conversion rate. Right, now we're on to something. We can continue investigating this feature and investing more time in it. So that answers the question, will you be building it? Now, so today, of the presentations I did manage to attend, it was a talk about how you build software, all in the delivery phase, all the shipping phase. And this has been a talk about preparing for that phase. I didn't live when waterfall was cool, but I do remember from the books that you have to have your requirements, you have to have your designs ready, and then you build your software. Correct me if I'm wrong, please don't. However, this has done most of your work already before even building. So your hack or your clickable prototype is pretty much all the ingredients you need to start building the product, right? So you don't have to have a very long list of requirements. You don't need a very long Jira ticket. All you need to have is this prototype. Sit down with the developer and say, this is how it works. These are the pixels. You can then proceed into the agile delivery phase. Yeah, so that's it. Questions, please. Yes.
Sorry, how big is your company? IT department, and maybe you can also give us an idea of the other departments involved in this process.
Wow, thank you for this question. It's a very good question. I wish I knew a specific answer. It's growing very fast. The number of people in total globally is around 1,500, but these are all people, not IT department. We have 11 product teams. Each product team has 8 to 10 people in the team. Not all developers. There's QA, UX, and so on. So that's 110, and that's just consumer product. So consumer product is around 110, and it's probably growing quite fast. Then there is the business product. So we have 6 more departments. So multiply that by 6, you have around 600 people. Yeah, it's a big beast. There's lots of meetings. It's not as glamorous as I made it look here. However, this bit was I'm passionate about, and what sort of makes me feel like a real product manager, where I figure out what I'll build and I'll go build it, and I know that it's gonna rock. Yes, any more questions?
Okay. We have 2 more.
How long you doing this practice, testing and experimenting, and how have you started with all experiments to do?
All right, thank you for the question. So just to point out, I'm not the main person doing this in the company. This has been a long history of doing all of this. It's probably, I want to say 2 or 3 years that this has been a common practice in the business. And I want to thank the board, who don't push us for deadlines and specific delivery times, which allows us for time to experiment and decide what we're actually going to work on. So the board is pushing us to experiment. If we don't have anything in experimentation pipeline, we're screwed. So 2-3 years, and every month we have an offsite where all product managers gather together. We tackle one specific problem of the consumer product and come up with a list of experiments that will run. So it's in the core of what we do. And then I have a follow-up comment of a question that I get very often from my colleagues as well, is how do I get this into my roadmap, right? Because I have to deliver features, I have to ship, right? I have to show results. So once again, the answer is the company's culture is focused around experimentation, making sure that we're leading instead of seeing a feature in the competitor's app and then building it, right? So we're the ones who have to innovate. Since we're the leader, we have to lead with the product as well. And also it is encouraged and not forced, we all do it. It's very much encouraged to spend a certain amount of your developer's time for building experiments. So it was there when I came in, really. Yep. That was one question. Oh, delivery bots.
Can you repeat the question?
So the question was, can I tell more about the delivery robots? Yeah? So there's an Estonian company, Starship Enterprise, very cool name, who build these robots. We work with them very closely. to make sure that they're able to deliver food. So they are real. We have quite a few in the office. There is a lot of experimentations going on, like how does a person know that the food was delivered? He is expecting for a knock. Instead, there is a robot, so there's an automated call potentially. There's potentially a text. Many ways we can message the person that the robot's outside. Now, when the robot's outside, you have to take the food out, right? And then you have to close. And what then? Do you tip into the robot? It's all very new to us, right? And then what happens if, kids pick it up and then run with the robot? So there's cameras and speakers integrated, and this is like from a futuristic movie. No guns.
That was my next question. How this robot decides that it needs to skip the bad neighborhood?
So it's all part of planning and discovery. So the neighborhood that it's in is quite good, but it's not too posh. The robot's wheels are quite small, so you have to, it has to drive on the sidewalk, but not too fast. It doesn't skip the neighborhoods. It just has a very commanding voice to put me down, right? No one picks it up. It weighs 20 kilos. It's quite heavy. But imagine a restaurant that's very busy, very popular, and you have an order, 3 blocks away. All your scooter drivers are out. They're probably gonna come back in 20 minutes. Do you reject the order or do you accept? If you have a robot in your shop, you cook the pizza, put it in, close it, and then the systems work out how it gets there. But there is a human element to it. So thus far, if it senses that it's been picked up and so on. But when I see it driving down the street, people are more about moving away from it. It's very scary. Yes. Okay, we have questions there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. It was a good, interesting presentation.
Thank you.
As a product manager, in your role, how you prioritize or look at competition, or where you see, do you kind of enforce to look into kind of you have your own values, how you differ from Deliveroo, for example, or it's kind of not your job? Just can you reflect on that competition and your job as a product manager in that context?
Yes, I can start by a little story, and then I'll get to the question. So in our product manager meetings, weekly meetings, we have a penalty box. If someone mentions the word business, which I did mention, sorry, we pay £1. And if someone mentions the business in an email, we pay £5. So the reason you mentioned the word business is because someone else will make the decision, right? So we as product managers are the business, we're the decision makers, we're driving the product forward. So to answer your question now, it's us who look at the competition. We use everything constantly. We have groups of people in the office ordering from one specific restaurant, from one specific competitor at the same time. They're all refunded, and we see if it breaks or do they actually manage to deliver orders on time. We try out the competition. In terms of what we put into the product, we try and focus more on what our customers want, and then build accordingly. But we have a very close eye on the competition and look at their code, what they've released, and so on. So it's a very very close eye to the competition. Yes.
Yeah. I have two questions. The first one is, you've mentioned, what's the percentage of user stories that you test? I'm assuming it's not every little bit that you test. And the second question, you've mentioned that you have monthly meetings with, I'm guessing, 9 other product owners or managers. And you also said that you encourage your developers to test, to experiment. But then on those meetings, you sort of decide what's going to be tested. So where's that freedom?
Yeah.
What did you mean exactly?
Okay, so I'll get to the second one first, actually. So the developers do their own testing and freedom during hackathons, but I just want to correct you there. We are encouraged to use developer time to build experiments. Because what if we run out of backlog that's been validated? What do we work on next, right? My work should have been done a month ago and be ready to be built. So we're encouraged to use their time. Now, in terms of freedom, it's a teamwork. There is ideas coming from all other departments, ideas coming from development. So there is this freedom to present what you want to test, and it goes through the process of evaluating how big is the problem, how easy is it probably to launch a prototype, the live test experiment, and so on. In terms of priorities, we tend to go for what feels like the bigger problem. It feels like is not the answer you're looking for. I can show you our decision matrices and so on. But we don't build business cases for a week, then present. That is not that official. But if we are releasing something, we better be sure that it's gonna be amazing. Or if it's not, then we know that we've gone through so many experiments that we've done the best. And therefore we release small iterations. How we all heard today, not work for a month. In terms of what's the percentage of user stories? It's like conversion rate, sessions, orders. We spend around, depends on the season and what's on our plate, but 20 to 40% of our time is spent on figuring out what we'll be building. The developers only get, they spend more time coding, making sure that we can support the 50 orders per second and so on. So they don't spend 40% of time experimenting. They spend it, we as product managers and the UX person spend our time researching what we will be building. So it's a very, very high percentage, because you don't want to be in the situation where you're building mediocre things, whereas your competitors are building cool shit. You wanna be the one building the cool shit.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Yeah. Goodie bag.
Thanks for a great presentation. And my answer would actually be connected to smaller scale. So yes. You describe us discovery on a big scale, yes, massive yes, company. But what you would suggest for a smaller scale? What is crucial for discovery? What you can skip from this big scale?
Okay. I've done another presentation about this back in the office, so I know the answer. I'll go back actually and tell you what you can skip, because you can skip feedback forms, because on a small scale you probably don't have much traffic, so you get 1 email a day. If you don't have a call center to support that big of a scale, so you can skip that. Reviews, probably you have 5, 3 of which is yours. So these sources of information are not applicable at a smaller scale. There's another presentation I can show now, but as a smaller scale business, you're trying to find a product market fit, and if you Google that, there's lots there. The book you should read is Lean Product Manager Playbook. And on a smaller scale, you're trying to find what's the biggest user's need that you can address, right? You have a list of users' needs. Does he want to search for food? Does he want to be told what the food he should order? Does he want to see food pictures? I'm really not creative here, sorry. So you try and figure out the user's need. Do they want premium food, or do they want a kebab, right? And then you cannot, where is that? You cannot skip a prototype phase unless you have unlimited resources and unlimited runtime. So what is a total must is a prototype with which you go to people and let them use it, and you shut up. With the prototype, you see if your hypothesis about their needs were correct. So does it match or does it miss correctly? With the prototype, you can maybe discover unknown needs. So if you're building software for lawyers, still here, then there are so many needs, so many user personas. It could be a person drafting the contract, it can be a person reviewing the contract, it could be account manager. Whose need do you address, right? So you pick a target segment, just going to quote the book, pick a target segment, figure out what they potentially need, come up with a feature set that you think is going to satisfy those needs, build a prototype, then go back to your segment and show your prototype to them. And then this is where sort of the magic hopefully happens. Hopefully you do address the need. If not, you saved your time from building and you can move on to the next prototype and see if you can address this need again. So prototyping, you can do concierge, cycling on your own. In your prototype, you can have fake door. They can click and you can say, oh, it doesn't work, but what do you think it should do? And they will tell you a story. But just be warned, don't, users think they know what they need, but only by using and tapping and looking confused, they will tell you what they actually need or want. So to summarize this answer, you can skip a lot of things, but not the prototyping.
Okay, Karolis, thank you for your great speech. Give big applause, and I have the last gift to give to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.